Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, political fighters. Welcome to the August 27th, 2026 edition of Choose Views. See what's easier to say because I have to say 26 twice in a row. 773-763-9278 is the number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Of course, down in North Carolina, we are on WARR and KTNF up in Minnesota, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Email me at richard@WCPT820.com and follow me on all the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. There you can get all of the good stuff, Choose Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito live, local and progressive, the great Patty Vasquez, and of course, Edwin Eisendrath and It's the Democracy Stupid. So make sure you're checking out our shows throughout the course of the day with Patty and Joan, or Joan and Patty, depending on how you want to put that in your brain. And then in the evenings, do not miss the Politics Bar. Sean and Jody do such a great job, as the Mac McNeil Show and the Gailey Show all come ready to play every show. So thank you for supporting all of the broadcasts on WCPT, and also by supporting our work at our digital news platform, heartlandsignal.com. That's the folks there work really hard to bring you good stories and updates in terms of what's happening, primarily in the Heartland, which is why it's called Heartland, but also stories that are impacting us throughout the rest of the country. A couple of quick ones that, and as I say so many times, the dotted line, wherever you are now, we are all interconnected. We always have been. That's the thing. We always have been, but we oftentimes, just work our little fiefdom, and nobody take that the wrong way. But we want to take care of our neighborhood, but we also want to take care of our broader neighborhood, our larger community, our state, our country. And that's why, even though Heartland Signal's focus is in the Heartland, the stories are relevant throughout the country. So make your way over there, like and share. A couple of quick ones. Minnesota Republican gubernatorial candidate Lisa DeMuth, Republican, claims that paid family and medical leave for educators lowers the students' achievement. Wow. Wow. Maybe things are being spent in ways that it's not directly educating our students. That just, it makes no sense, Lisa. I mean, how do you want to be governor of a state where you're telling teachers that medical leave, family and medical leave, should not be something that we consider? This doesn't make any sense. We want them to be as strong and ready to go to teach our students as possible. Whatever state it is, that's got to be something that we all can lean into. But that's the Republican candidate. So check that article out, of course, at heartlandsignal.com. And then Dr. Abdul Sayed, once again, speaking the truth that he knows, talking about a couple different things, talking about Jake Lang, if you guys have, come to know who he is. When somebody like Jake Lang comes here, a convicted January 6th terrorist, and targets Dearborn, it's not because he hates a particular group of people. It's because he hates that America is bigger than the small version that he wants it to be. Wow, that's true. That's very, 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 and I would say that what Dr. Sayed is saying there is probably true of much of the GOP, many of the voices who their hate may or may not be specifically to a group. I think that in many cases it is. But to take the doctor's words here, it's because they don't want to see an America that's bigger than their small version of what they want it to be. That's pretty powerful. They only want it to be in their image. Which is, kind of, it's not just selfish and all those kinds of things. It's very narrow. It doesn't show, it shows that person's capacity to grow and be bigger than they are is very limited. Another comment from Dr. Syed, Michigan State Senate candidate, tells Michiganders who were subjected to Jake Lang's racist protest that even when there is hate, the best answer is justice. Jake Lang just reminds us just how much stronger we are together. So kudos to Dr. El Syed for speaking his truth and speaking on those points about Jake Lang and kind of how he's running around and kind of getting a pass with this house arrest ankle bracelet that he's wearing. Devin was saying earlier in the week that in some places it's required, in other places it's not. I mean, that's kind of strange to me, Henry. But hey, there you go. On today's show, we're going to be taking your calls from now until 7 o'clock. So some things that we will probably be talking about. I'm going to be talking about, I have a couple of comments and thoughts about communist and the word communism being used right now so readily. And we'll talk a little bit about, and I want to get you guys to chime in on this in terms of your thoughts about Trump's threat to demolish the Kennedy Center, and how Canada has outsmarted Trump when it comes to the tariffs and how the Republicans are freaking out about that. There's a resolution to impeach Trump for covering up ICE murders. Want to hear what you guys have to say about that and his hissy fit that he threw against after Doug Ford tells him to kiss his backside, where he's got a lot of real estate. And maybe get some thoughts from you guys on Representative McKeever in Maryland being subjected to further, what we'll say is very biased prosecution in her case, retaliatory prosecution, more specifically. So, and then doctors are warning that Donald Trump is getting fat again and how it could kill him. Ha! Wow. So we'll be chatting about those things during the 6:30 to 7 hour. So if you guys want to call in and chime in on your thoughts there, I'll give you another reminder when we come back from the next break. On today's show, like I said, we'll be taking calls. And in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Joe Cunningham, former congressman who now serves as spokesperson for the Pharmaceutical Reform Alliance. He discusses the PRA's new report on big pharma and drug prices. We'll get into some of the other things that are happening when it comes to cost. So, yeah, it'll be you'll enjoy the interview that we had with him. And then host of the Webby award-winning podcast Beyond Voting, Emily Williams, who's been with us before. She's going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour, and we'll be talking a little bit about voting, but we're also going to talk a little bit about what's going on with some of the issues with voter interference and the climate catastrophe that is coming. So looking forward to talking to Emily in the 7:30 hour and our interview with Joe Cunningham at 7 in the 7 o'clock hour and your calls. So make sure to give us a shout. And if there's a couple things that you wanted us to talk about this week, then give us a buzz and we'll get that on the screen. So there you go. We will take a quick little break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew, of course. Keep it locked in right here. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. It's Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. Thanks for being with us this morning. Question of the day, real simple one. You know, there's a conversation out there, and then we'll talk about this a little bit, that Donald Trump wants to, or he's making a threat about the Kennedy Center. And I think you guys are probably familiar with what took place earlier this year and putting a name on the Kennedy Center. And then that became a situation where the local politicians, not just in D.C. but in Maryland, said, "No, that's not going to happen on our watch." And so the position that was taken is that him renaming it was, not in the spirit of what the center has been representing for all these years. So my question to you guys, this is a very, very basic question, is that do you think that Trump will actually go forward and demolish the Kennedy Center? They're saying that now, of course, this is, again, another retaliatory and retribution type thing. How do I want to put it? He said this is how I've read it, and then we'll get into this a little bit later, that if his name is not going to be on the Kennedy Center, that the Kennedy Center essentially needs to be destroyed, and trying to justify it by saying that it's because it's decrepit, it's falling apart, and all these sorts of things. And, there's been a banner over it, a tarp rather, over it for the last number of weeks since the judges said that, adding his name to it is not what's going to happen. So they put a tarp over it, over the name, the Kennedy Center, and now they're threatening to demolish it if he can't have his name on it. And trying to justify it by saying that there was the work that needs to be done. If they can't get the work done, then they need to demolish it. So clearly, this is retribution from Trump. But I want to know if you guys think he'll actually literally go forward with that, like he, has dug a big hole with regard to the East Wing and creating this ballroom for himself. So let us know what your thoughts are there. You can text your thoughts on the ballroom. Not the ballroom, but on the Kennedy Center. You can give us a call with regard to that, or you can go to our Facebook page and leave your thoughts there. But in the meantime, here's a couple of quick Choose Views news items for this August 27, 2026. Gas prices are dragging consumer confidence lower during this month of August. They dropped to their lowest level since the beginning of this year. They were, of course, weighed down by higher gasoline prices and growing pessimism about the labor market. The Conference Board's confidence index declined to 89.4 from 90.2 in July, according to data released earlier this week. The accompanying survey conducted August 3rd to the 16th showed respondents growing more downbeat about their economic prospects as gasoline prices climb above and hover above $4 per gallon. The SEC has sent out subpoenas for banks in the situational awareness bets. They've issued subpoenas to lenders that helped fund the outsized trading bets for the AI hedge fund Situational Awareness before it nearly collapsed in July. According to the New York Times and unnamed sources, the regulator requested information about the timing of trades from banks including Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, and Bank of America, all whom were ordered to retain data related to their fund, according to Reuters. So we'll see where that goes. United adds unexpected international routes to lure travelers. They're adding 10 international routes next year, betting that travelers will want to get away from overcrowded large European cities and try new destinations, according to Patrick Quayle. New additions include flights from San Francisco to Okinawa, Japan, Newark, New Jersey to Slovenia, and to Washington, D.C., from Washington, D.C. to Toulouse, France. United already offers more international service than any other U.S. carrier, and having added 49 destinations over the past 5 years. The airline is seeing resilient demand as consumers are cutting their spending in other areas to still be able to travel. Brain disease afflicts at least 25% of ex-NFL players, according to a recent study. CTE, as it's known, according to a study, over 800 former players have been afflicted with this condition. The research conducted on ex-NFL athletes who died between 2016 and 2021 found that 24.5% had CTE, though researchers caution the numbers could be higher because many brains were not tested. The findings are poised to reignite a debate over the dangers of repeated NFL collisions, with researchers noting that few American workplaces present similar neurological safety issues. Last but not least, Target apologizes for their offensive Halloween costume. Target says they are, quote, deeply sorry for a Halloween costume, it says, was offensive and perpetuates racist tropes. The children's costume had been pulled from stores and the retailer's website. Target apologized following intense backlash almost after a year after the company retreated on its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts amid government pressure, or I should say specifically, pressure from the Trump administration. Target vowed to investigate the recent incident, acknowledging that it was especially hurtful to Black employees and shoppers, as well as customers. Actress Viola Davis posted on social media she did not accept the apology because the costume, if you've seen it, I'll just tell you to Google it, you'll see it, it's more than just offensive. Some could say that it could put Target in a situation where they could be brought up on some charges with regard to the perpetration of racism. And they're in a commercial enterprise. I mean, it's a stretch, but this is one of those times when companies, they've got to know what their company is doing, what their stores are doing. So there you go. Just a couple of quick Choose Views news items here today, August 27, 2026. Good news here in Illinois. Moody's Ratings has upgraded Illinois' credit rating from A2 to A1. Which does some really great things for the state of Illinois. It's marking the state's 11th credit rating upgrade since 2021. This elevates Illinois to its highest Moody's rating since 2011. And what that means, some of the key drivers have been the balancing of the budget, the completion of 8 consecutive on-time balanced state budgets, a rainy day boost, growing the state's budget stabilization fund to nearly $2.5 billion, and major debt eradication, completely eliminating the state's historical multi-billion-dollar unpaid bill backlog. One of the things that this is going to probably allow the state to do, which is yet to be fully determined, is be able to and be more strategic with financial matters for the state of Illinois, which will impact the city of Chicago. It's inevitable. We're the biggest city in the state. And upcoming toward the end of this year, the upgrade directly impacts the state's upcoming financial pipeline. In other words, the Illinois plans to execute a $900 million general obligation bond that's going to start at the end of next month in late September. The stronger credit rating allows the state to borrow at lower interest rates, obviously reducing debt service expenses and saving taxpayers millions of dollars over the lifespan of the bonds. The proceeds will be deployed to rebuild Illinois' infrastructure initiative and the state's voluntary pension acceleration buyout program. That is good news across the board for the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago. And I also say this is where we have these moments of being connected. That has benefits for the region and the country. The better that the state of Illinois is doing, the better that the contiguous states are doing, in my mind, because we are interdependent. And the more we realize that, the better. And so this is good news, not just for the state of Illinois, but I say for the region, if not the country. All of our states, we want to strengthen all of our states' credit ratings because it allows us to have access to funding. It allows us to have access to, or the ability, I should say, to create bonds, which ultimately benefits so many of the pieces of the state that make the state successful. So when we have those kind of backboards in place, I mean, you could talk to any small business owner, he or she will tell you when they're able to have access to funding, it allows them to grow their business. And so this is essentially what this rating is going to allow the state of Illinois to do, is to have access to funding to be able to grow the state of Illinois. So I'm excited about that. And congratulations to Governor J.B. Pritzker and his administration and his team for pushing really hard to make sure that has happened. So good on them. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and talking to Christopher Armitage, veteran and former law enforcement officer, activist, and publisher of The Existentialist Republic on Substack. His latest piece is Articles of Impeachment for who? Clarence Thomas. Live, Local, and Progressive weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT, AM 820, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. And then for my listeners, tonight on Driving It Home and WCPT listeners at large, Elliot Serrano and Ken Mejia will be filling in for Patty Vasquez. Their guests include Greg O'Neill and Q-Force of Q-Force Midwest Action Group. That's Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT. Of course, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, and YouTube and Facebook. Tomorrow on Choose Views, I'll be joined by Karen Byrne, co-host of True Blue Politics Podcast, as well as Amy McDonald, host of The Foolish Optimist with Amy McDonald, and Kevin Schultz, professor of history at the University of Illinois at Chicago, author of Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, including white liberals. Looking forward to talking to all three of our guests tomorrow, and make sure that you tune into Joan and Patty's show today. And you know about our newsletter. Heartland Signal has a free newsletter. Every week, Heartland Signal's head of research, Aaron Kleinman, delivers Radio Free America, highlighting stories that matter in state politics but aren't getting enough attention. Subscribe today at heartlandsignal.com/newsletters. And we'll give you another reminder about that a little bit later in the show. But for now, just a quick couple of bites of something to chew on. Farmers are struggling, y'all. I got an article sent to me basically saying, and this is coming from the Black Farmers Association of America. I'm sorry, the National Black Farmers Association president, John Boyd. He ripped into Donald Trump and the administration yesterday over recent policies devastating the agricultural industry, which he says is insulting to Americans' farmers, all farmers. This is not what American farmers need right now when we are struggling. We're struggling with the president's tariffs. We're struggling with the high cost of fuel, diesel, and fertilizer from the war in Iran. Even though this is coming from the president of the National Black Farmers Association, this is true for all farmers right now. They will tell you. We've had guests on that are running for office. We've had folks on that are not running for office that have direct links to farmers. They will tell you that these increased costs, starting last year with the tariffs and now with this war in Iran, are making their lives extraordinarily difficult. So America, all I have to say is we have to push back on this to make sure that our farmers are taken care of, because our farmers have always taken care of us. Something to chew on. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thanks for listening to my show. Thanks to listening and checking out Joan and Patty and our evening shows, of course, our weekend shows. We really appreciate it. And every now and again, I want to always come back and circle back to that and not let you guys think that we take any of it for granted and that we just, kind of show up and say, oh, yeah, everybody's listening. They're checking us out. We want to make sure that you guys know we appreciate it. You guys heard this, and I got a few things to talk about this morning, and we're going to grab some calls in a little bit, so make sure you guys give us a holler. But you guys know about this situation where, once again, as a distraction, the administration, or Donald Trump or his lackeys, I heard somebody say lick spittles. Woo! That one was like, it was on, what was I watching? I was watching MS Now. One lady referred to them as lick spittles. I thought, that's just gangster, but it's right on point. But we've got a clip from one of the Canadian writers, Stephen Marsh, and he talks, basically just kind of hits the nail on the head about, the offer from, or the talk around from Trump again, and J.D. Vance again, about Canada being the 51st state of the country, along with these crazy tariffs. Let's hit him with it, Henry.
Stephen, I'm curious how you read this decision, not just by Carney to say, no, we won't accede to your ridiculous demands in the last minute, but to actually sort of call the bluff and almost kind of escalate, right? To say, we're going to start, and we're going to start in September right away. How do you understand that? How is that being received in Canada?
Well, I think when the details of the deal became clear, it became obvious that it really was not a trade arrangement. Like they wanted to control things like our ability to impose tariffs on other countries, and particularly the language laws. You know, the things that are not negotiable in this country. Like French is one of our mothers. It's not something that we put on the table, and so it became very clear that essentially it wasn't a trade deal at all. It was just an arrangement, basically, for us to end our sovereignty. It was an offer to become a colony of the United States. What it was really was a ticket to Epstein Island, and Canada didn't get on the plane. That's basically what happened.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you have a predatory president. He wants more out of Canada. He wants also things that are not money. He wants things that are values that we cherish to be degraded. And this is the entire modus operandi of this. It has nothing to do with benefiting America or American industry or anything like that. It's simply about humiliating another. And so, what we've learned is that the way you deal with bullies is you take your beating, you hit back as hard as you can, and you walk away as fast as you can. And I'm afraid that the world is figuring out now that that's really the only way to deal with America. That's any kind of accommodation is just holding off for the worst.
Yes, and yes. But the one thing that he slipped in, and I don't mean this. I'm not talking about what Stephen said, or saying something negative about this. The thing he slipped in is how to deal with America. Did y'all catch that? How to deal with America. And by the way, that was Chris Hayes on MS Now, just to make sure we give a shout out to Chris. We got to get him back on the show again. How to deal with America, guys. Not how to deal with Trump. That part right there, that one hit me in the gut. How to deal with America. Countries are trying to figure out how to deal with America. And when we've got our neighbor that we're constantly running up to their door and knocking on the door and yelling nasty things to them, eventually your neighbor is going to want you to move, or they're going to move away from you. And they may have been a good neighbor for a long time. Now, Canada's not going to move. We know that. But you know what I'm talking about, not literally. They're going to move they're preparing themselves. How to deal with America, y'all. Because they're probably looking at this and going, how many states on the northern border of the U.S. are run by Republicans? What do we have? North Dakota, Montana, Idaho. The rest are all, Democratic governor states, as far as I know. Or at least we've got a chamber of the House in their state legislatures. So they're not just thinking about this in terms of what's going on in Washington. You know that they've got to be thinking about how are the governors who are sucking up and lick-spittling Donald Trump, how are they going to impact us? I mean, I think that, our other states in the east part of the border are got their heads right. But, this is where we are. How to deal with America. That's what really struck me when I listened to this clip. And here we are. So, we got a dude that wants to tear down one of our, national monuments if he doesn't get to put his name on it. It's threatening to demolish the Kennedy Center if he can't have his name on there. Where do we go from there? I mean, he wants to tear it down and then try to justify it as it's falling apart. It's in bad shape, and we need to tear it down. No, if he got to put it, I bet you $1 if he got to put his name on it, they won't. The renovations that they're talking about will probably not happen. But I could be wrong. They may still happen, but there'll be ones that are just ugly and disgusting. And I was watching, I read this article where that everything right now is all about gold and creating this. We got you guys. Maybe you haven't paid attention to this. Maybe you have. I don't want to make any assumptions on what you do pay attention to, but gosh, I go back to this clip from Stephen Marsh. How to deal with America. That says a lot, y'all. Not how to deal with the Trump administration, but how to deal with America. So fingers crossed that. I mean, I don't want to be all Hopi and running around on hopium. Let's deal with this from a pragmatic standpoint. But that's a little crazy. That the Kennedy Center being torn down, retribution for not having his name on it, and Canada saying we're preparing ourselves how to deal with America, not Donald Trump and his administration. That's a different ball game. Let's grab a couple of quick calls, Henry. Let's go to Cassandra in Oak Park. Good morning, Cassandra, and welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am doing well, and how are you?
I'm good. I got a little, sort of that morning sinus thing going on, but, we get through it.
Yes, we do. We push on.
I have to give her flowers, and I do this when we email back and forth, but Cassandra is our retired friend, y'all. She's happy to have had a long, illustrious career, and now she gets to hang out and enjoy her time, but she's calling the show this morning, so what's going on?
And yes, retirement is still fantastic. I'm calling about, you gave us such a smorgasbord of topics, but I'm going to land on the Kennedy Center. I absolutely think that he would follow through on his threats simply because the Supreme Court doesn't stop him and there's nobody else in Congress that stops him. Now, Canada stops him. Greenland stops him. It's like this little kid in him wants to be Donald the Conqueror, but the only place he's really conquering but / destroying is America institutions, America landmarks. And I, on a side note, I'm wondering if a little bit of this lack of restraint from Congress is simply because maybe part of Project 25 might have been compromise Congress. And maybe somebody hasn't unearthed that little piece yet, because I am so surprised that there's not one person with a backbone in there.
Cassandra, this is the thing that I've said this before. I've said it here on the show in some ways, and certainly in private with a lot saltier language. There is no way. I don't know what I could have done in my life that I would have been so embarrassed by it becoming public that I would allow somebody to pimp me out like this. Yes. I don't think I've done anything that disgusting that I wouldn't be able to fess up and say, listen, I'm human and I made a stupid mistake, but I'm not going to let this person pimp me out. And as an elected official, even more so, I would go to my voters and say, look, y'all, back when I was, 50, I did some stupid stuff and it didn't come out. This dude is about to bring it out to hold to hold it over me so that I don't represent you, and you elected me. I apologize for that bad behavior. I apologize for that situation, that thing that I did then, but it doesn't change the fact that y'all voted for me and my job is to represent you. So even though this is going to come out about me and Donald Trump is going to try to beat me over the head with it, I'm coming to you guys to let you know I'm representing you. I think that would be the thing to do so that the people who elected me to office would go, okay, he's like us. He made a mistake. He's dealing with it, but he's not going to let somebody hold it over him and not serve us. Does that make any sense, Cassandra?
100%, because you got it, like you're saying, you're going to, meet it head on. And it's basically a game of chicken. And they blinked, and they keep blinking. And it makes me wonder, because even in his first administration, I'm like, somebody has been compromised. A
lot of somebodies.
Yeah, a lot of somebodies. They're going to his country clubs and all this other stuff. They're eating his food, drinking his wine or whatever, and, partaking of his hospitality in his rooms and such. And he's got film rolling. And so now it's like, hey, unless they're really scared of their wives or something. But, no, I really do think he wants to be Donald the Conqueror, and then Bibi served him up the platter he couldn't resist with Iran.
That's a great way of putting it. And nobody
has stopped him. And so he's just doing what a kid on a tantrum does. He's going to run through the room and tear down the drapes and flip over the couch and rip the carpet. And America is that room.
But I'm going to give you some more flowers. I bet you that only happened one time in your household.
I would tell my children. I said, I must have made you think you had an option here. let me rephrase that. Let me rewind and start again. And the thing for me is, I know people are capable of almost anything under the right circumstances, right?
Yep.
But with my children, I said they may do that once, but it will only be once. Yeah. This is not going to be a repeatable offense or whatever, because as an obligation, Congress should be put on the mindset as parents. As an obligation, you are supposed to be the character, the standard bearer, and you have him do the right thing. You train him, you teach him to do the right thing. Nobody's stopping him.
Yeah, that's right. Cassandra, thanks for the call this morning. I love that when you think you had an option. Talk with you soon. Stay safe and enjoy your day, okay?
All right, you as well. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. Guys, let's take a quick break because we want to get in some more calls when we come back from the break. 773-763-9278 is the number. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be back with more Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. Thanks for being with us this morning. Let's grab a few more calls, Henry. Let's go to Cindy, I believe in Orland Park. Good morning, Cindy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I'm calling about a book regarding health in response to someone who called your show long ago. It was before 2026, and you were not hosting that day. Someone else was. I don't remember who.
Okay.
But he called in just in a panic. I have a friend who's trying to get off drugs, and she can't, and she's in pain, and she feels like there's no way out of this, and she feels like she's not even going to live much longer, last much longer. And so my sister was on prescription drugs and was in a bad car accident. She was formerly a respiratory therapist in two different hospitals. And she, after this car accident, was put on pain meds. The pain meds gave her symptoms, so then they gave her meds for those symptoms, and it just snowballed. And when they started taking her off of it, they took her off of too many things too quickly. First of all, that's crazy. But she said, I'm dying. I know I'm dying. I have all these terrible symptoms. Well, that was withdrawal. And I have other chronic problems, and I read everything to help myself get better. And one thing I know is the body wants to heal, but it needs to be nourished. Mm-hmm. These prescription drugs and other drugs deplete nutrients. Well, anyway, let me get back to the point. So I said to my sister, you're not going to die because there are things to help you. I could think of things off the top of my head, but I said, I want to cross-check everything and be sure we're doing everything exactly correctly.
Yeah, good point.
But I said, we're not going to stop until, you're feeling better. And there is a way to feel better. I promise you that. So just hold on. So one book that helped a lot, and I'm saying this partially to respond to the world is a mess. Our health is terrible. We have a mentally ill man, running the country, and we're trying to figure out what is he going to do next? Well, who knows? A mentally ill person might do anything next. Yeah. Anyway, so here's something we can do. Here's something that people can use. And the name of the book is Break Your Prescribed Addiction by Billie J. Staley, Billie, J. Staley, Shaley, PhD and CNC, which is Certified Nutritional Consultant. But even if it's not prescription drugs, even if it's street drugs, this book will help you. There are things in there even about alcohol that, people who drink too much, it's a symptom of deficiencies in certain ways, and you need to replenish those deficiencies by nourishing the body.
Cindy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
At any rate, it lists specific symptoms of withdrawal. And from my experience, my reading, and so forth, I believe that the withdrawal and the nourishment could help any drug that someone is coming off of. But my sister did get better. And I want to say this, because this is being handed out to patients like M&M's, Xanax. My sister was on fentanyl for pain, and the Xanax was the hardest to come off of. It was awful. And Xanax helps produce GABA, which is a calming factor in your body. You can get GABA with B6. It needs a little B6 from a health food store for pennies a day, and it won't harm you. So again, the book is Break Your Prescribed Addiction by Billy J. Saley.
All right, Cindy, thank you for that information, and I'm glad our listeners...
Good luck to everyone.
All right. Thanks, Cindy, for the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. There you go. Make sure if you are a person that has any concerns in that space, I mean, we don't cover a lot of medical issues here. We do talk about the prescription drug industry. But, obviously it's helped Cindy and her family. Check out the book. That's just new knowledge, added knowledge. Let's see what Leo has to say down in South Carolina. Good morning, Leo. Welcome to the show.
You're gonna make me follow that. She's so positive, trying to help people, and here I am saying punch bullies in the face.
Well, but hey, hold on a second, Leo. Sometimes that's that's the good medicine that they need. They get addicted to take a page out of Cindy's book, no pun intended. They don't need to be addicted to where they are. You need to break the fever and punch them in the face. So come on.
That is absolutely true. So I tried to call in. You've been talking about people getting on to you for attacking the Democrats. We're not in a cult. All right. Nope. So the way we got here is because people refused to say no when our elected officials are doing bad things. Democrats don't do that. We shouldn't do that. We need to hold our people accountable.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's first and foremost. So when I say we need to punch bullies in the face, we also need to kind of shake our weak leaders. We need to shake, I don't know, the fortitude back into people, or just replace it or move. But I think Canada was absolutely right. I sometimes I guess you might have to take your beating, but you definitely have to stand up to it. Before your segment, they were talking about how red dye is being taken out of food. That's because we're loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's not politicians wanting to do the right thing. That's because we cared enough to get involved with it.
Leo, this is the thing about when people get after me for criticizing Democrats or talking about what Democrats aren't doing. It's because I want us to do better. I come from an environment of people, family, friends, colleagues that say, what are we not doing well that we could work on, or we can identify and then push to do a better job? It is not to call out just because I ain't got nothing else to do. It's because I want us to be better. I want us to win. And sometimes we have to slow down and go, okay, what did we not do as well as we could have done? If we can't identify that, then we're living in a la-la world, to be honest with you.
And you're getting to my point. And this is where I'm trying to get to. I shared a video of the future senator for Michigan going on to Fox News and Jesse Waters, and some old high school classmate of mine gets on and says, "That dude hates America." I know what he's saying. I knew who he meant when he said it, but I play along and I'm like, I don't think Jesse Waters hates America. I just think he wants, a whitewashed version of America. And he's like, oh, no, not him. It's like, oh, not bad.
Get him, Leo. Get him. I knew you were going to do that because I know how you roll. That was brilliant, man.
I do, but and then he's like, he hates America. He wants Sharia law, and I think I called into you and talked about Sharia law and how Sharia law is 100% it's the Muslim version of republicanism. That's what they want. You want the same thing. Let's be honest.
Well, what he said too about it, meaning Dr. Syed and others have finally said, do you understand what canon law has done to this country?
Exactly.
And see, then they get stuck because they don't. This is the thing. First of all, they don't know what it is, and secondly, the fact that they don't know what it is, they then pivot to try to trash talk the person, and that's what happens all the time. Just watch the flow. They'll pivot away from it because they have no idea what the person's talking about. And Dr. Syed was ready. Dr. El Syed was ready. So appreciate that, Leo. Yeah.
He is fantastic. I hope he's the future president. But he went on to say, like I said, he hates America. And I said, he and we hate your version of America.
Yeah.
We want nothing to do with your version of America. You're absolutely right.
That's right.
We want the version of America that we used to pledge allegiance to, where it's liberty and justice for all.
For all. Leo, thanks, my man. Stay safe on the road. We appreciate your service and the hard work that you put in, okay? Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
All right, bye-bye. Let's grab one more quick call. Let's go to Al in Franklin Park. Al, you got a minute. Let's go for it. What you got?
Real quick. Well, you were talking about the Kennedy Center. It got me thinking that, it's not Trump that tore down the White House. I mean, there are contractors doing that. Who are these people that are letting this happen? Who's the guy that's saying, hey, go over there and tear down history for me? I mean, think about so he's an enabler, but who are all these sycophants letting him get away with it? And think about the state of mind of all these people that ran the bulldozers that went in there and tore it down. How do we get to these people and find out their stories and use where we are now to help get out the vote and get people involved? I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. But let me add something to that in partnering with you on this. I agree with the people that are elected officials that have stood idly by and allowed this kind of stuff to happen. I agree with you. Let's drag their behinds in when we take back. Let's get them in a hearing. The guys and the gals who were hired to do the work, respectfully, this is how I feel. I wonder how a guy or gal who works for one of the construction crews that loves the country, but he's been struggling like hell to get a job. He got hired on this project, and he's finally back able to make some money, take care of his family, and it might break his heart or her heart to put that bulldozer in drive to take down part of the building. But he's got to feed his family. So my heart goes out to that, and I'm making a broad assumption here. Y'all know this. But let's go after the people that are elected that have stood by to allow some of this craziness to happen. That's how I see it. So you make a very good point, Al. I hear you loud and clear, though. Absolutely. Let's get them.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is I'm saying, what are these people's stories? Because you're right. There are going to be people out there that felt terrible about it and did it for the money. But, now it's months later and we got to tell the stories, figure out what happened.
It is a good angle to take to talk to somebody that's on one of the crews and ask them how they felt about doing that. That's actually an interesting perspective and angle to take. Al, as always, it's good to hear your voice. Glad you're well. We're going to hit a quick break, though. You know where we are.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, man. Be safe. Yeah. That's a lot to talk about. So let's take this break. 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more Chew's Views.
You're listening to Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
Well, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. One of the things that continues to happen is that we have these really strong voices that have been in politics. Some have left. And the thing that's consistent is that they have continued to be a leading voice. Joe Cunningham, who is one of those folks, member of the Democratic Party, narrowly defeated Republican State Representative Katie Arrington back in 2018. He's been around the block, as I'll say, in a positive way, and still is in the fight to make sure that we are speaking well to what's going on in so many areas that are important to us. Joe, welcome to Choose Views.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take a little bit of time and tell our audience here and all over the country a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and then let's get into some of the things that you're currently working on.
Yeah, of course. So I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. Married, got 3 kids, 2 dogs. I jumped into politics back in 2017, and the shortest answer I can give you is that Trump was elected in 2016, and then I overreacted. But that's as succinct as I can put it, because in 2018 we saw a monumental new wave of leadership come in. I mean, that's when AOC came in. You had Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, Alyssa Slotkin, a bunch of powerful women coming in. And I was part of that monumental freshman class. I flipped a district here in South Carolina that was gerrymandered, that had not seen a Republican in 40 years serve it. I'm sorry, they had not seen a Democrat serve it in 40 years. It was a district that Trump had carried by 13 points 2 years before. So ended up being one of the biggest upsets in the country. And the next cycle, when Trump was on the ballot, I almost did it again. It fell short by a point and was the Democratic nominee for governor statewide here in South Carolina in 2022. And since then, I've returned back to practicing law, but advocating for the issues I'm passionate about, one of which I'm excited to talk about today.
You know, we have this connective tissue when I look at our politics right now as Democrats. A lot of imperfection, a lot of stuff that we've got to do to rebuild trust, all that stuff. But that's part of any organization that's looking to get better. And I think the Democratic Party right now is in that space. And we've had some successes, a lot of state elections, state legislatures that we've won, and some of these off-year elections or special elections, however they're deemed. And we've got momentum right now. And I want to see us continue with that. What do you think is the biggest thing that we have going for us in terms of maintaining and keeping that momentum?
I think the environment is critical right now. I mean, the wind is at our back. I mean, these failed policies have put people in dire straits, economic hardships. It's become so expensive just to stay alive. And when people are struggling to pay their grocery bills or their rent, or they're getting dinged for different fees and invoices, and then you look at a ballroom being built in D.C., or you look at billions of money going into Iran, shipped overseas as opposed to fixing our broken systems here at home, there's a growing frustration. And that has become more and more evident as you look across the country. And so I think that the time is right for new leadership, especially new generation of leadership coming in, but also, the failed policies, specifically of President Trump and his administration, are just being highlighted for Americans.
Well, and you talked about the ballroom, for example, and one of the things that I look at and say, regular everyday folks like you and me and millions of folks who voted for this administration aren't going to ever set foot in that ballroom. And if there were going to be money spent on a structure in Washington, D.C. that was really for the people, then build a structure that's going to be something that folks can come and visit and learn something and to enhance their lives, but not a doggone ballroom that's going to be, for the rarefied air of politicians and moneyed up people, right?
Well, and I have even less of a problem by the ballroom than I do what's going on overseas. Just in the fact that, maybe there is additional space that is needed up there. It's the timing and the optics of it, though, at a time when most people are struggling. And they're asking themselves, well, what about the policies that can lift up Americans? What about, like codifying the most favored nation that brings our drug prices in line with the rest of the developed world? I mean, why can't we, get private equity out of the housing market, which consumes 1 out of 4 homes these days and is raising prices for the middle class? Why can't we just make some some meaningful change that can lift up all Americans.
And that's why, when we look at the items that are important right now, we know, and many people that I've talked to on my show have said to me, Richard, the two biggest issues right now are affordability and accountability. And I talk about that a lot. Actually, I got to give credit where it's due. Amy McGrath, who'd run for Senate in Kentucky, really is the one that's really been leading that voice. It's not just affordability, but it's also accountability, because a lot of the things that are going on, people just feel like nobody's being held to account for this chaos that's taking place in Washington, but also in many of the state legislatures. What are your feelings about the conversation around accountability as much as affordability?
I think they go hand in hand, because as people are trying to afford everyday ticket items, that anger or that frustration is compounded by, reckless spending that they see from their government, or misuse of funds, or, insider trading, or people profiting off these government deals. I mean, that only makes just the frustration grow among everyday Americans. And so I agree that they go hand in hand. Look, you want your government to work, and you want to be able to at least trust it. And right now, people are seeing just a lot of just ideas and policies that are pushed aside, and instead folks are focusing on padding their own pockets, or stock trades and things like that. So there's a lot of growing frustration there, though.
Yeah, it's clear to me that many people are tired of playing by the rules that are laid down for the masses, and then there's a select few. And this is nothing new. There's always been that group of people that skirt the rules or create a kind of a protection for themselves against the rules. But I like no other time in my life, and maybe going back to Watergate, I could say, have I seen the everyday person in America really want to see some folks be held accountable for what's not getting done, or how things have gotten done, or what's not been done in an honest, above-board way. And I'll tell you, when I hear the conversation that Congress isn't working, I draw a little bit of a line in the sand and say, no, it's Republicans right now, and I'll be partisan for a moment. It's Republicans that are not working, because they have the numbers, and if they are the representative body, they should be the ones to putting the brakes on what this administration is doing, which is so, out of alignment with what so many Americans want to see happen. That's where I want to see that accountability also reach. Is not just Donald Trump and the administration and the cabinet, but there's a lot of Republicans that need to be held accountable for what they've not done in leadership roles. Don't you think?
I mean, when you have Republicans controlling the House, the Senate, the White House, you scratch your head as to why more can't get done. Especially when it involves like very, very popular ideas and policies. Like, I talk a lot about this, the cost of prescription drugs and most favored nation, and codifying that so that we don't pay in America 3 times as much as they do in other countries. And this is a policy that enjoys 91% of Republican support, 70% of independents, and 64% of Democrats. That seems like there seems to be like low-hanging fruit, like these policies that they could push through and get some wins, but I'm scratching my head as to why they aren't.
Yeah, and you've had this opportunity, like so many people, to write a book, and in the book, you've made it clear that our party has some shoring up to do. Those are my words. But that in that shoring up, though, is huge opportunity. It's not just criticizing to criticize. I say this all the time when I talk to folks about this topic, is that we have to criticize our party. We have to Joe, talk about what we haven't done well and what we can do better. But to the end, it must be about the opportunities that are in front of us. What would you say are some of those top opportunities? And I know that we've got to get and be thinking past Donald Trump, because he's not going to be there forever. So no matter what they try to say about, he is going to run again in 2028. Yeah, right. But that being said, what are a couple things before we go to this break that you think are the opportunities in our criticism of our party that we can use to be beyond Trump?
I think we've lost credibility with a lot of American voters based upon, what happened in 2024 with Joe Biden decided to run for re-election, with Kamala Harris stepping in. But it goes back before that to how he spoke to voters, inventing terms and words where the common voters feel like we're either speaking down to them or speaking at them as opposed to speaking to them. And also being a little bit humble about, where we were in the past, but also where we're going to go in the future. And that includes bringing in new ideas. And when I look across the Democratic establishment, I haven't seen just an outpouring of new and bold ideas. Say what you want to about Trump, but you understand his ideas because they're spoken in plain words, and you can acknowledge that he has some of them. I just feel like there's been an absence of those bold ideas. And look, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and so came from a party where, the TVA and the New Deal, and these are big, bold policies that uplifted every American. And that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, I've come to realize that bipartisanship is important. However, the other side has to be willing to work with us. And clearly, we've been trying. Right. But the Republicans have not shown me, and I'm talking about on the state level and on a federal level, any real interest in working with us. We keep getting our hands slapped when we try to, reach across the aisle. And that's why whenever I've had a chance to talk with an elected congressional member of Congress, I'm like, they're not our colleagues right now if they're not willing to work with us. And I believe that. We want to be the party of bipartisanship. We want to be the party that's reaching out to the other side. But they've got to be willing to work with us right now. And I haven't seen any signs of that, but it doesn't mean that we stop trying to do it. We still have to come up with the new ideas, like you said, and bring some new, old New Deal sort of thinking to the table, so that our side can say, yeah, that makes sense. But why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that thing called drug pricing and where we are when it comes to pharmaceuticals. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. Okay, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. As I said at the top of the segment, we're talking with Joe Cunningham, who has been, as he said in his own definition, lifelong Democrat that's fought real hard for bipartisanship and finding ways for us to be connected and working together. And one of the areas that this is something that doesn't pick red, blue, or in the middle, and that's the huge cost and investment in prescription medication. Joe, let's talk a little bit about what you've been working on as of late when it comes to drugs, drug pricing, and where we as a country need to be suited better when it comes to big pharma.
Yeah, so here's the layout right now, is that in the United States of America, we pay on average about 3 times as much for the same exact drugs as those people in other developed nations. So we're basically subsidizing the lower cost of people in other countries. The concept of the most favored nation is that we bring our prices in line with those around the globe. And so that's been proposed. It's been proposed by this administration, and it's actually a piece of legislation that's been introduced by Congressman Ro Khanna, a friend of mine, who is on the far left. The irony here, though, the beauty of this, is he's also got people on the far right. He's got, he had Marjorie Taylor Greene who co-sponsored it. He's got a list of Republicans on there. This is a policy, and look, there's not many in Washington D.C. Most people up there in Congress can't even agree on the problem, more or less the solution. But this is one of those rare opportunities where you have true bipartisan support because it impacts all Americans. And I mentioned those numbers a bit earlier, but they're worth reiterating. 91% of Republicans support codifying most favored nation, 70% of independents, and 64% of Democrats are on board with it.
Well, and when I look at history, Joe, one of the things that comes to mind, and I was writing this down earlier, when it comes to negotiating drug prices, I mean, we go back and say, I'm a why person. Why and how do we get here to the best of our ability? And when it comes to negotiating drug prices right now, one could say that, George Bush, the most recent George Bush, had a not good impact on our ability to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical companies. And one of the things I think that we've got to be willing to do is acknowledge that and then start to drive a wedge like Ro Khanna is doing into this conversation. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, and after serving in Congress, you get to see firsthand just the enormous power of the big pharma lobbying industry has. So there's 3 office buildings that house members of Congress, just in the House side. There's, Longworth, Cannon, and Rayburn. And the Longworth building, when I was up there, still had, this goes back in the day, right? The members' offices still had safes in there, presumably from back in the day when lobbyists would come in, they'd bring their, whatever they would offer, cash or whatever, in exchange for supporting legislation. Now, we've come a long way since then. The safes are still there. I don't think they're in use, but come a long way since then. But it does highlight just how, historically, how powerful certain lobbying industries are. And if you ask yourself, why can't we get something like this done? It's because of the, big pharma, they spend bukus of money lobbying Congress to try to just throw sand in the gears and essentially stop any advancement at all.
Our health system, or I should say our community of folk, are not as healthy as we could be. And I know that there's some connection between pharmaceuticals as well as our health and human services conversation. And, Michelle Obama got criticized for wanting to see us have healthier children and have healthier activities. RFK Jr. has certainly come forward with his ideology around this. But at the end of the day, we are dependent on pharmaceuticals in large measure because we aren't as healthy as we could be. And many of the things that are going on in the country as it relates to that are tied to, let's have a healthier community where pharma doesn't have as much impact because we're not as dependent on the medical prescribed drugs. Give us your thoughts there.
I mean, the impact of people who are skipping their doses. It's like 40% of Americans report cutting pills or skipping doses or not filling prescriptions due to cost. 1 in 6 adults delay or go without care because of the cost of healthcare. Think about just the strain that puts on our already strained healthcare system. If you're not taking your pills, then what ends up happening is you end up going to the hospital. You end up having to go back to the doctor, and as opposed to maintaining care and staying out of the hospital. So it's already strained and overburdened system because people cannot afford to get their prescriptions refilled. And so it has a compounding effect on our whole entire healthcare system.
I've learned over the years that the better I take care of myself, the better that I'm going to be, and hopefully less dependent on certain pharmaceuticals, whether it be situational or ongoing. And the conversation that I think we all should try to have. One of the reasons that the GLP-1 drugs have become so popular is because we've got a crisis when it comes to obesity. But at the same time, we've got a system, a medical system, that doesn't really talk about prevention. It's more on the treatment side. And then again, this is where the pharmaceutical companies come in, and their lobbying power is immense, is that we don't have a conversation about prevention and about taking care of ourselves. We have a post, conversation about illness and all the rest. Do you think there's space in our conversation politically and socially without sounding like we're picking on people to talk about better health?
No, I think it's become more mainstream. I mean, popularity of these GLPs have surged. People are paying attention, realizing the tremendous benefits they have for those who can afford it. That's the key thing, right? Because a month of Mounjaro in the U.S. is listed at $1,023. All right, in the Netherlands, it's $444, and it's only $319 in Japan. So,
and these are communities these are communities that their population as a country is the same as some of the populations of certain states that we have in America. So right there, let's just be honest in terms of the math, the large numbers math. Something ain't math.
Yes. I mean, just by pure math, based upon numbers, we should be paying even less than they are. But it's having, it's having. We know the obesity rates in America and how they've surged. We've seen the impact that obesity rates have had on our military. What percentage of Americans cannot make the cut in our military because of that? It's having a strain on our healthcare system. So, I mean, these GLPs, they aren't going away. They are providing a great benefit. But again, it can only be as good as the price tag of them.
Are you? Well, let me ask a question differently. As it relates to the price tag of medicine right now, obviously, I think the seemingly the most powerful lobbying group right now, it may be the defense industry, and pharma is right there. 1 and 2. I'm sure there's actual data that would determine which one is 1 or which is 2. But they're the biggest 2 right now, and they also, for me, seem to be the ones that have the least solutions-driven impact. We don't need an even bigger military. I think we need a more efficient military, and we can bring down the budgeted amounts that go to the military and put that into education, put that into healthcare, if you will. But on the pharmaceutical side, it seems as though they have had an equally, influence or detrimental influence on our overall, political system. How do we pull back there? Do you think we can pull back there?
It's got to be results driven, right? Because it's been profit driven by big pharma. They put profits over people, and the numbers speak for themselves. And you can see their mission based solely upon their ledger sheet. And when they spend, like this past quarter, the bulk of the industry's lobbying was spent at attacking the most favored nation. And it's not just the big pharma's budget. They shave off a part of their budget, and they sent other, for instance, earlier this year, there were a bunch of conservative groups that issued a letter to Congress opposing the most favored nation. Well, the publicly available tax records showed that like 19 of the 52 signing groups accepted over $9 million in funding from this industry's top trade associations from 2019 to 2024. So, they're not only directly attacking with their own money, but they're shaving off money to send to other groups to do their bidding for them.
That's crazy. But see, here's the thing. Most people, I'll say maybe not most, but a large number of people, Joe, don't you think, don't even know about that? Don't even know that these... Go ahead.
No, you prop up a great organization like Children for Kittens, and it sounds great, but you got no idea who's funding it or whatnot. And so, there's a lot of these. I guess it's called AstroTurf groups, or but you just have to question things a bit.
Let me ask you this question as we wrap up, and it's been great talking with you about this. How do you think that the midterms, if the Dems take back the House, I mean, God will help us if we get back the Senate, but what do you think will be the outcome in this area when it comes to most favored nations if Dems take back the House?
I think I think this has to be on the table. And look, I was part of that monumental class in 2018 who took back the House during President Trump's first term. I see this as kind of the sequel, and I realize there has to be accountability. But I feel like in 18, 19, and 2020, we focused too much on accountability and not enough on delivering the right results. Now, granted, this affordability crisis has been building And so we're in a different environment now, but we've got to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. So if we're going to hold people accountable, we also have to deliver results. And at the heart of that is driving down the cost of prescription drugs and making healthcare more affordable.
Without a doubt. Joe, how can folks find you as we wrap up today?
You can find me at Joe Cunningham, SC. And you can also learn more about Pharma Reform Alliance at www.pharmareformalliance.com. And they're also online at Pharma for Inc. So.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Thanks for being with us this morning on Choose Views. Joe, we'll look forward to talking to you again in the future. Sound good?
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning, and thanks to Joe Cunningham for having some time to chat with us. She has a long resume. I guess that's how I'll start. Emily Williams is the award-winning host of Beyond Voting podcast and democracy educator. She has also spent a lot of time just making sure that social justice is something that we all get to experience. And I think that irrespective of community and culture, social justice is something that if it goes in the wrong direction or isn't there, can negatively impact anybody in America. So I want to welcome back to the show again, Emily Williams. Good morning, Emily. Welcome back to Choose Views.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me again.
You social justice warrior.
I'm out here.
So, wow. These last few weeks since you were on, and I think this is, it takes me back, Emily. This is before your time because I'm older than you. But it takes me back to a soap opera that was called As the World Turns. Mm-hmm. And right now, as the world turns, we have so many things that we're keeping up with and staying on top of and trying to stay on top of, trying to manage, trying to keep the world from spinning off of its axis, if you will. And inevitably, we keep coming back to one of the big ones that a lot of people just don't want to talk about. And I think it's part of social justice, and that's climate change, environmental change, climate justice. That's all tied into, I believe, social justice. Help us through that. Walk us through your observations in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you. It's such an important topic. I hope that listeners heard about the flooding caused by the landslide in Nepal, which happened yesterday or the day before. And our most recent podcast episode was actually about climate change. And the question is climate change a social justice issue? I agree with you. I think that it is. And therefore, the question is, where's our advocacy around it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure Chicagoans know about the increase in tornadoes in Illinois over this current year.
Emily, did we just, hey, this is not the top of a list thing that we want to be, but did we just move to the top of the list in tornadoes for the last decade or any other state in the country?
We did. There's only one other state which has had over 200 tornadoes in 1 year, and that's Texas. We've now surpassed that with 204 tornadoes this year. And that's a result of, a warming climate, a warmer atmosphere, more humidity in Illinois. And then we see that there are collateral effects of that, right? Gary, Indiana was without power for over 2 weeks. Yeah. And so, it's an issue that we not only need to continue to be aware of, but we also have to be asking our politicians, how are they helping us prepare for these impending climate catastrophes, right? Yeah. So now what happened in Nepal was a result of glaciers melting, right? I mean, that was just the scale of that flooding was just absolutely massive. And so I think we have to prepare for more catastrophes to be coming, but not only just expecting more, but also saying, how are we actually preparing for this? And we have to hold our politicians accountable for actually preparing in the ways that we need.
I think on the backside of it too, Emily, like, for example, how does Gary, Indiana, and we could I'm gonna use the word blame, but not in an aggressive way. We could blame the local leaders in Gary or in Porter County. For those who don't know the county that's there, that's less relevant, but the city of Gary. We could blame the governor. We've got folks on, frankly, both sides of the aisle politically and in the middle that are part of the decision-making process. The governor did just say, or did finally request for national emergency status from the federal government, which I think that exacerbated the problem. But where I'm going with this, Emily, is the preparedness is part of this conversation, but it's also it's the awareness of the next. And I don't know how I can articulate this other than just to say it and let you help me, work through this. We know that areas are probably more susceptible to things happening. So then if you know that, because now you have experiential data, that we should then be able to use that to say, in the event that this is going to happen again, we need to have these things ready so that the people in those communities, whatever the community is, red, blue, or in the middle, are able to get through it faster and not have to wait so long for recovery. Is that too optimistic of a thing to aspire toward or request of our leadership?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's realistic and I think it's absolutely necessary. But I think it's a matter of us mapping this onto our advocacy agendas. I mean, for so long, climate change has been debated in mainstream media, and it's like we can no longer afford to debate it. We have to just start preparing for it. And in order to get our politicians to actually prepare for it, we have to make those demands as everyday citizens. And I think it's not only making the demands that allow us to be prepared for impending climate catastrophe, but it's also about looking at what are the current drains on our tax systems, on our power grid. There's a huge, data centers are popping up everywhere. They're consuming a ton of data. We know that it's not good for our water sources. They consume a disproportionate amount of water. These things are human-made crises that are exacerbating climate catastrophe. And so we also have to keep our eyes on these kinds of things to say, let's not make the problem worse, right? And we know that data centers, it's also about political advocacy. And there's lots of people here in Chicago, in Illinois, and around the country who are really speaking up to say, we don't want that burden. We don't want that burden on our pockets, on our communities, or on climate. And so we have to keep an eye on data centers. And then we also have to continue to find ways to hold our politicians accountable because, it's for many communities, it will be a matter of survival, like we saw what happened in Nepal.
It's interesting. One of the things that comes to mind, Emily, and thank you for kind of walking us through that part of it, the number of data centers that are going up in various communities. And I'm going to take the broad brush and say all communities where they're going in. And many of them are rural and they're white, and many of them are rural and they're not white. Many of them are more urban and they're Black or Hispanic or other folks of color, communities of color. But at the end of the day, the thing that is not happening is that the resources that are being used and drained out of those communities aren't, from the other side of the conversation, the data centers are not providing jobs for the people that are in those communities that are giving up the resources for the data centers to be there. So for me, that disconnect is huge. And yes, it's a political conversation, but doggone it, everybody's impacted negatively by them from the environmental piece. But, I guess what I'm trying to say is some people might say, all right, well, if y'all are going to deliver 1,000 jobs with this data center, then we might be able to get our heads wrapped around. We could accept that if there was something that came back to the community. So they're just flat out robbing resources without any return of value to the community. Am I crazy?
No, I would say I would agree with you. And I think a lot of Americans would also agree with you. And I think that's why we're seeing so much pushback against data centers. I also think that's why we're seeing, I think that's why people are also really preparing to push back at the polls in November, because they can see that this administration has created an environment in which, corporations are able to be so brazen as to, completely exploit communities. And there is no benefit to the communities, right? I mean, it's quite brazen to, just totally disregard public opinion in some cases and still erect these massive data centers, which are, consuming water and, detrimental to the environment and not creating jobs, not serving communities in any way. But they're able to do it right now because of this administration and because this administration is allowing them and protecting them in doing so.
Right. Good point. Let's take a quick break, Emily. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us. This is Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, and I am talking with the host of the award-winning Beyond Voting podcast, Emily Williams. Emily, great to see you this morning, and thank you so much for your diligence and your hard work when it comes to your podcast, but also just being plugged in and keeping folks aware of what's happening. I think the honor and the blessing that folks like you and I have, who have a radio show or a podcast, is that, hopefully we get to reach some people and we get to bring some people to the party and say, okay, y'all, we can get this done. And we can get it done by connecting with each other and making sure that people aren't feeling disenfranchised. And there's silos, because with all the attempts right now to distract us, one listener sent a text earlier when I asked about, do you think that that Trump is going to actually, tear down the Kennedy Center because he can't get his name on it? And one person said, I don't know if they will, but basically, and I'm paraphrasing, basically it's just another distraction to keep people not focused on what the midterms, not focused on voting. And so you've really had some strong thoughts, and I won't say opinions, but some really strong thoughts and observations about voter interference. Mm-hmm. And you're just talking about voting and what's coming up in November. So walk us through where you are in this conversation around voter interference, Emily.
Yeah. Well, number one, we've partnered with the Queer News podcast, and we have a forthcoming campaign in September about voter awareness called Chicago, Are We Voting? So definitely find us on the socials and follow along, because we'll be talking to everyday Chicagoans about their feelings about voting, their plans, also what issues matter to them. I think the most important thing for these midterm elections is that people are prepared for interference. We've seen the Trump administration's attempts since 2020 to interfere with elections and the results of elections. They've just got, a recent win around the mail-in ballots, right? And allowing USPS to only send mail-in ballots to an approved list of voters, right? Mm-hmm. And so we know that if that actually happens, that then could drastically reduce the amount of people who are actually able to vote. And that's just one attempt most recently, right? They've attempted to seize voter rolls, right? They've attempted to purge voter rolls, to get people off of the voter rolls. They've already said that they intend to have ICE patrol voting locations on election day. And so, we hopefully at this point, we have learned that this administration forecasts what they intend to do. And so, we ought not be caught unaware. But at the same time, I don't hear these conversations about what do we do if ICE is at the voting locations, right? How are we prepared for that? What on the other side of the political spectrum, what's their plan, right? I mean, do Democrats have a plan to protect polling places, to protect voters? If they don't, then we need to be calling them and saying, we need you all to have a plan here, right? Don't leave us vulnerable, because we know that this administration is attempting to interfere with elections already.
I agree with you 10,000%. I've been saying versions of that for a while. And I do believe that there is, I don't believe, I've seen those talking about it in some ways. But my add on to what you're saying about the awareness and reaching out to the elected officials is a couple of parts, a couple of things that come to mind for me that I've said, Emily. One of them is, if there is a plan and if there are things that are going to be done or that are being done, then let us know it. I think that one of the best ways right now, because see, I think that the Trump administration feels as though that they, through ICE, through the Department of Homeland Security, have the edge, and they do because they have the money. They have the edge in that regard, but elections are state run. So when I think about that perception that they have the edge and that it could lead to suppression and depression of people showing up, if that's real, then this is where I say that the AGs, the Democratic AGs, because they're not going to target Republican states or Republican hotspots. They're going to target Democratic cities. They're going to target Houston in a blue city in a red state. They're going to target, Des Moines, Iowa, a blue city in a red state, and the list goes on. Because they're not going to be stupid enough, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong here, to try to come to Chicago and monitor voter, locations. I don't think they're going to be that misdirected as they already are to try that. They're going to go to places where it's a blue city and a red state predominantly, because that's where you tend to see the swing state activity voting take place. So they're going to go to Detroit, or they're going to go to Lansing, or they're going to go to places like that. They're going to go to places in Ohio. They're going to go to places in Arizona and others, because they feel like they can have an impact in pushing the conversation as it relates to the swing states and the federal level. On the Senate races and the House races, they're probably going to show up there. So my thought is the attorneys generals in those states where there's a blue attorney general, he or she needs to be shouldered up with other attorney generals to say, we are prepared to take them to court if necessary, based on their actions coming to a state-held and state-managed election. Your thoughts?
I think that has to be part of the strategy. I also feel that that's going to be a little bit too late, right? Because, if they're seizing, voting machines and equipment, they're then able to tamper with people's ballots and then declare a win, right? So in some ways, I feel like, yes, of course, we need to use the courts, but that may also be a bit too late. Right. I think we may need to see.
So you're thinking preemption. We've got to, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but preemption. We've got to, these next 70 days, the conversation's got to be somewhere in the space of, here's what we're going to do going to the polls. Here's what we're going to be prepared to do on that way, in that moment, and et cetera. Yes, no, am I still way off the base here?
No, correct. Yeah. And I think it's going to have to be, similar to some of these executive orders where mayors of cities are saying, our police force will not cooperate with ICE, right? I think there has to be some sort of equivalent which says, okay, if we see any signs of interference, here's how we will combat that, or here's how we will protect voters in these instances. To say that, number one, the administration can't just get away with this. Number two, to, project to voters that we're not going to leave you out here stranded and vulnerable, right? And I would think that it's also a matter of self-preservation for many Democrats.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I get with what you're saying, and agree that if it's incumbent on us right now, right now to say to people as a form of beating back the depression or suppression attempts by the potentiality of ICE being there, that local officials should be saying, local and state officials and some federal, that if you show up, first of all, don't, but if you do show up to thwart people's attempt to vote in a state-run election, this is what's going to happen to you. You're right. Telling them now, we'd be damned what Donald Trump wants to do, or Mark Wayne Mullen wants to do with HHS. You come here and you cross the line, you're going to go to jail. And tell them. Yeah. And let them know, because I think that has an impact on the voters feeling like our local authorities, our local law enforcement, they have our backs. Does that
100%, right. And it's also it also represents the politics of the majority of Americans. You know, the majority of Americans want free, fair, and safe elections. And you know, the many Americans are also pretty dissatisfied with the Democratic Party right now. And so this is an opportunity for the Democratic Party to say, we are going to stand up, right? We can be tough. We can mount some resistance to this administration. And here's one very demonstrable way that we can do that. And so I hope to see some of that.
Yeah, I think that that the more we lean into, here's how we are helping you right now, and here's what our help's going to look like in the future, that's going to be beyond just this midterm election. It's going to be something that will help to sustain the Democrats not doing the yo-yo thing. Certainly on a federal level, we win the midterms, we lose, presidency, or we win the presidency, we lose the midterms. And we constantly are fighting for that. And we never gain because we aren't keeping we don't have what the Republicans have right now, which is all three levels, if you will, plus a Supreme Court and many of the governor's mansions. That's what I've been saying for, a long time. We need to take them all at the same time, not just one here and one there, because you never really get any traction. And that to me is why I've been probably overusing the word this week, momentum. Keep the momentum. Mm-hmm. Don't break it by doing stupid stuff or saying stupid things or, holding silly meetings with people, don't.
Exactly.
You like how I slipped that one in?
I do. I was wondering if you were going to.
Don't hold silly meetings right now. Just keep the momentum of what people are asking for.
Exactly.
Emily, there's never. I say this to so many guests. There's never enough time, but I never want anybody to feel rushed. But thank you for being with us this morning. I'm looking forward to having you back on in a couple of weeks. I'm so glad that through our good friend Rico Mowat, we found each other and we can do our best to drive this conversation forward and help as many people be inspired, stay inspired, and be able to do some of the things that they want to do. Because so many people want to be involved right now, and oftentimes they just don't know what to do or which direction to turn. So thank you for carving out a little bit of time this morning. How can folks find you, find the podcast, and get involved with some of the projects that you and your team are working on?
Yes, thank you. So people can listen to Beyond Voting everywhere you stream podcasts. And then also they can follow us on Instagram at Beyond Voting Podcast. We will be launching our voter awareness campaign starting in September. It's called Chicago Are We Voting? And then people can find me on Instagram at Miss Ems32, which is MSEMS32.
When is it launching? Because I want to have you back on somewhere around that time, either right before or right after.
We'll be launching the first week of September.
Okay. All right. So then maybe sometime in mid-September we can get back together and have you on, talk about that, and then do it again as we keep getting closer to the midterms. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right.
That sounds wonderful.
Emily Williams, y'all, award-winning host of Beyond Voting Podcast. Check out her work. Make sure you are following her, liking her, and sharing it with everybody you know. Emily, thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great rest of the week, okay?
Yes, thank you. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right, guys, that's about it. What can I tell you? We drove the train into the station and we didn't run over anybody in the process. Thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks to Emily. Thanks to Joe Cunningham. And thanks to you guys for all your great calls. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember, as always, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.